In the spirit of Valentine's Day, I thought it would be fun to make one of those best to worst relationship ranking videos for an animated show. And what better show to try that with than Dr. Katz? For those unaware, Dr. Katz Professional Therapist was a 90s animated sitcom that starred Jonathan Katz, H. John Benjamin, and Laura Silverman. It's a pretty niche program nowadays, and it's not talked about a lot on YouTube, but here we are. There aren't a lot of main recurring characters on this show, so this video will probably be a quick one. We'll go through Dr. Katz's most important relationships, ranking them from healthiest to not.
You dogs are trained better.
Here are Dr. Katz's relationships from darling to dysfunctional. Taking home the first place ribbon for best relationship is his relationship with Ben. Dr. Katz and Ben have a great father-son bond. While it's not perfect and the two can be a bit codependent sometimes, they both have good intentions and try their best to keep a healthy relationship. Dr. Katz adores his son and it shows. Ben is his entire world. He never fails to tell Ben how much he loves him and how important he is.
Hey Ben, you do know that you're the most important person in my life, don't you? You understand that?
He even talks about Ben to his close friends.
Does my dad talk about me at all, or is it?
Oh, that's what he always talks about.
Really?
Yeah.
Dr. Katz makes time to hang out with Ben and always welcomes his son's companionship. If his son is sad, sick, or struggling, Dr. Katz drops everything to nurture his child. It doesn't matter that Ben is an adult. His dad never stops doing dad things. Dr. Katz also has a level of patience for Ben that he doesn't extend to just anybody.
You said don't use it.
Right. Why would you do a thing like that?
What do you mean, use it?
Yeah.
Fun.
And this is a man who has a lot of patience for people's nonsense.
What do you think is wrong with the compressor, Ben?
There's some nails in it, Dad. From when I put them in.
You put them in the compressor?
Yeah.
Okay.
He lets Ben make mistakes and try new things. Even if watching his son flounder causes him great distress, Dr. Katz won't stop Ben from figuring out who he is and trying to find his place in the world as an adult.
I'm not mad at you, Ben, if that's any comfort to you. I'm a little disappointed. I think it was a great idea, but you know what? Maybe it's something you can come back to at a different time in your life.
I think Dr. Katz and Ben have the most wholesome relationship on the show. In second place is Dr. Katz's relationship with his close friends, Stanley and Julie. I've placed them together on this list because we rarely see him interact with either Stanley or Julie one-on-one. Maybe in one episode each. For the most part, the three of them hang out together at the bar where Julie works. Stanley is always ready to offer advice and ideas to Dr. Katz. He tends to act as a problem solver, or at least a sounding board, when his friends need help.
So you're just jerking me around. You don't really know what you're talking about.
My heart is in it.
Whether it's a ride to and from the bar, financial advice, or just a listening ear, Stanley doesn't hesitate to jump in and offer his support.
It was my pleasure. That's what friends are there for. I mean,
Julie has a warmth about her that brings Dr. Katz back to the bar regularly. Like Stanley, Julie is also happy to help Dr. Katz whenever she can. Concerned about his health, she acts as his personal trainer so he can get back into shape. She encourages him to stand up for himself and set personal boundaries because she knows it's good for him.
No, I'm not a portly guy.
No.
So I said, stop it.
You said that to her.
I said, stop it.
Good.
She remembers the small things from their conversations and takes an interest in his life, even taking his guitar lessons in exchange for helping him exercise. She also seems to know enough about psychology to impress Dr. Katz with her knowledge, even ordering Sigmund Freud napkins for the bar.
Well, you know what Freud said?
what?
He said it's the dreamer, not the dream.
Well, no, I didn't know that, but I did know that he said, the dream is the life of the mind while asleep.
Say that again slow.
You know where I read that? You know where I got
where,
that?
Where'd you get that?
We got those new Freud napkins. You haven't seen those?
No,
Freud cocktail napkin?
What a
Yeah.
great idea.
Even though she's more into fitness than psychology, it's these little actions that show how much she cares. Julie and Dr. Katz have a bit of a flirtatious thing going on, too. He has a crush on her.
Have you ever fallen in love with one of your friends, Dr. Katz?
Maybe.
And it's not a secret that Julie feels the same way. In a classic Freudian slip, she says this when trying to help Dr. Katz rehearse his lines in community theater.
Jonathan, do you know how long I've dreamed of this moment? Do you have any idea?
They kiss passionately.
You can't tell me they don't have some kind of spark.
This is good. This is good. You guys have a chemistry or something.
Nobody makes that kind of slip, followed by a kiss that lasts a bit too long like she does. Third place was a tough one to rank, but I decided to go with the relationship between Dr. Katz and his father, Sidney. We don't see Dr. Katz's father during the show, but we know they keep in regular communication. Dr. Katz helps his dad by taking him to appointments, checking in regularly, and spending time together off-screen. The episode Pretzelkins starts with them talking on the phone and ends with Dr. Katz ultimately playing bingo with his dad.
I-10.
Even though he didn't want to schedule Saturday night bingo in his calendar, he knew it would make his father happy, so he went. Dr. Katz learned how to be a good father from somewhere, and the fact that his dad is still in his life and is mentioned regularly enough for me to include him on this list justifies this third place ranking. Now we're moving into the gray area. Laura and Dr. Katz have a complicated working relationship. Laura is brash, blunt, and sassy.
Okay, I'm done with this conversation.
She often breaks Dr. Katz's office rules and oversteps his boundaries, even breaking patient confidentiality sometimes. She knows he's kind of a pushover and shamelessly takes advantage of his kindness. She's apathetic and rude to patients, rude to her employer, rude to his son, and she doesn't always do her job. So why is Laura in the gray area instead of downright dysfunctional? Because despite Laura's attitude, she actually cares deep down.
Dr. Katz, I'm not going to leave this job until I find a better one.
She knows to thank Dr. Katz when he does something kind for her, like when he sets up a Christmas party in office management. She also helps him with things he struggles with, even though she doesn't actually have to. She helps Dr. Katz learn how to waltz. She talks to the difficult patients about payment and often acts as a bouncer of sorts.
You know what those sirens mean.
I'm gonna break you in half with my bare hands.
Laura!
Confrontation is hard for Dr. Katz, but not for Laura. She sees that he needs help in that area and she is happy to join in when needed. She even broke up with someone for Dr. Katz because he was too scared to do it himself.
Dr. Katz, are you asking me to break up with her for you?
Would you?
Yeah.
Laura might put on a tough girl front, but over the course of the series, we watch as Dr. Katz and Ben both grow on her. She even comes to their house for Thanksgiving and meets Ben's mother. She gets so frustrated with Ben, but she never actually lets him suffer. She could have easily let the tow truck take away Dr. Katz's car when Ben parks it illegally, but she doesn't. Laura is manipulative, no doubt, but she will use it to help Dr. Katz and Ben. She convinces the driver to give back the car, putting on her best fake tears performance to accomplish this. She cares in other ways too. The most notable instance of her caring is in the episode Walk for Hunger. She seems to get through the 20-mile trek without issue, but when she realizes that Ben hasn't finished after falling behind, she actually comes back and looks for him.
Hey, there you are.
Laura!
I was wondering what happened to you.
What are you doing? I lost you at like mile 6.
Well, I came back to look for you.
She even helps him make it to the finish when she did not have to. Underneath that big ol'
Ball of bitch
is a good heart. She just doesn't show it often. Out of the gray area and into Dysfunction Junction, we have the relationship between Dr. Katz and Dom Irera. I rank Dom Irera as more dysfunctional than Laura because he deliberately ignores doctor-patient boundaries and doesn't seem to care. More than once, he has asked inappropriate things of Dr. Katz. These include asking for rides home from therapy.
Hey, Doc, thanks so much for this. This is great. Now, look.
Just don't expect this.
I don't expect anything. Can I sit in the front, though?
Asking to drink beer during therapy sessions and asking to be friends.
Doc, can I ask you something? Will you be my friend?
When Dr. Katz says no to these things, Dom begs and manipulates him into ultimately changing his mind.
Can you imagine how lonely I am? The depths of loneliness for me to have to ask you to be a friend?
See, I think that's an aggressive thing for you to do.
Dr. Katz doesn't exactly relent on his boundary of not being friends with his patients, but Dom Irera just keeps pushing that boundary further and further. When he's faced with a hard no or a limit, Dom tries using emotional manipulation tactics like crying, or straight up just doesn't take it seriously.
Limits, hey, guess who's ticklish, huh?
He also gets a bit too physical with Dr. Katz. He sits on his lap, tickles him, and even punches him in the face by accident. The face punching thing may have been unintentional, but it wouldn't have happened if Dom had just stayed on the patient's couch like he was supposed to. And let's not forget the voicemails that he leaves for Dr. Katz. His Falling Hard for Dr. Katz song is hilarious, but it's definitely not okay to leave on your therapist's answering machine.
Dr. Katz, the world moves much too fast for Dr. Katz. Even though I know that it ain't right, can't you see I'm in pain, Doc?
Dr. Katz really needs to fire Dom as a patient, but due to his people-pleasing tendencies, he won't. Like Laura, Dom also takes advantage of Dr. Katz's gentleness and fear of confrontation, and that lets him get away with a lot of his bullshit. Don't get me wrong, Dom Irera is one of the funniest guests on the show, and he's one of my favorite characters. But he and Dr. Katz don't have that healthy doctor-patient rapport. The most dysfunctional relationship on this list is between Dr. Katz and his ex-wife, Roz. I try not to throw around the word toxic too much, but I don't know how else to describe their connection. They had an unstable marriage and an ugly divorce.
Did you guys have an ugly divorce?
She was.
And that heartbreak still stings 10 years on. In the episode Anniversary, we learn the most likely reason they got married in the first place. Ben. Roz got pregnant with the couple's only child, and the pair settled down in an effort to make the domestic life work. But some people make better co-parents than married parents, including Dr. Katz and Roz. It seems that they tried their best, given their circumstances, but sometimes one's best effort is just not gonna cut it. It's hard to talk about Dr. Katz and Roz without bringing Ben into it. Dr. Katz doesn't say bad things about Roz in front of his son.
You said hated pool, and then you said my house.
Ben.
The only time he does is when he accidentally says hated pool when suggesting that Roz stay at a hotel instead of their apartment.
But you said hated because we were talking about Mom.
This probably took a huge amount of control, if that's the worst thing he said about her in front of Ben. He's careful what he says to Ben, but he openly expresses his disdain for Roz to his friends at the bar. And in the book Dr. Katz's Me at a Glance, which I see as canon to the series, he writes extensively about his anger towards her. He mentions in part of the book that she saw being with him as, quote, dead weight, and even doodles a picture of himself with a knife in his back. We also see quick little shots that hint at Dr. Katz's feelings for Roz. There are no family pictures in the home that include her, and the ones that do tend to have her cut out of them. Some of her personal belongings, such as an earring and weightlifting belt, are still in their home, but in Ben's possession. I think Dr. Katz would have thrown those away otherwise. Ben struggles to admit this, but Roz is the one who left the family.
Well, the actual date of the divorce is not important, but when she left, I didn't serve her with papers for 6 months until after she left. And you know, when I served her with the papers, you know what she said?
What?
Nice presentation.
Dr. Katz ends up with sole custody of Ben.
And
Then you move in.
then you move in, and then you get divorced.
Yeah,
You go to
ugly
court, it's
settlement.
ugly,
I get custody of the kid.
All right, let's get off coffee.
And he seems to harbor resentment for Roz's absence. In one episode, he flat out tells Stanley and Julie that Roz abandoned her son.
When in fact, she abandoned him. That's the story.
Abandoned is a strong word, but I have no doubt that Dr. Katz means it. Then there's the Thanksgiving episode. Where do I friggin' begin? Dr. Katz and Ben invite Roz over for dinner as a show of good faith, but the two are anxious about her visit for most of the episode. Carrie Fisher does an amazing job portraying Roz as an apathetic and pessimistic type.
All right, you see, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
You say I never laugh, look. And you don't notice when I do, you only notice when I don't.
Maybe that's why Ben likes Laura so much, but that's a can of worms for some other time. Dr. Katz and Roz can't even get through one evening without a fight. Dr. Katz seems almost defeated afterwards, unwilling to poke the bear further, so to speak. Their brief interactions in this episode offer a lot of insight to their relationship dynamic, with Roz being confrontational and abrasive, though somewhat self-aware.
It was always such a nightmare for you to have to listen to me after you listen to people all day.
Yeah.
I mean, that was finally a big problem.
With her ex-husband shrinking down and shutting up in response.
There is no reward with you. There's simply non-punishment. Dogs are trained better.
Dr. Katz remains calm throughout this awkward moment, but the tension is there and it is thick. Roz seems to have a laundry list of mental health issues, and while that alone won't make somebody a bad parent or spouse, it's the way she treats her family that does. She seems almost disinterested in Ben, outside of thinking that he and Laura are a couple. The sad thing is, Ben is so devoted to his mother and craves her approval, but doesn't exactly get that when he burns the dinner and has to serve microwave meals instead.
Yeah, Dad, don't make fun. I tried.
Sure, she refers to Ben as a lovely boy.
I'm sorry. It was a lovely dinner. He's a lovely boy. You did a lovely job. I'm sorry I went away. There's nothing I could even say. But you saw I ate everything, which was not easy.
But she says this to Dr. Katz, not to Ben himself. I could go on for hours about the unhealthy relationship between Dr. Katz and Roz. All I can say is that the divorce was probably the best choice for their family, and things must have been really bad if Dr. Katz still holds on to this much anger a decade later. Well, you know what the music means. Our time is up for today's video. But in the meantime, feel free to watch some of my other Dr. Katz related stuff. I'll see you all again very soon.